Hi, welcome to the Optimum Tide. I'm Anastasia Jaegerman. Today, we have our first installment of Ask the Doc. I'm really pleased to have our own Chief Medical Director with us today, Dr. Joannides. Dr. J, welcome to this segment. You're our first guest on Ask the Doc. So today, we're going to talk about GLP drugs.
Thanks, Anastasia. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here today. Yeah, this is a class of drugs that people may have heard of, but I think we're going to give them a little more insight into what these drugs actually can do.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. So tell us, just the basics. What is a GLP-1 drug?
Well, it stands for glucagon-like peptide. And this can be a confusing name for some people. People have probably heard of insulin, which is produced by the pancreas.
Yes.
And that helps in the control of blood sugar. And then there's another substance that the body makes called glucagon. And the body makes that whenever you get into a low blood sugar situation. So you have insulin protecting you against high blood sugar and glucagon protecting you against low blood sugar by actually putting more sugar into the system.
Oh.
Now, these drugs are called glucagon-like peptide. So you would think that it would work like glucagon, but glucagon, as I said, works to increase blood sugar. These drugs, even though they're named glucagon-like peptide, they actually work more like the insulin because they help release insulin to control blood sugar. The body makes this substance, so our human bodies make this substance in the small intestine. It's released, but it only lasts a short period of time in order to help with blood sugar control. As you and I heard at the meeting in Montreal recently,
right?
The glucagon-like peptide only lasts about 1 to 2 minutes in the body. And the reason for that is the body wants to have a constant read about what food is in the stomach and what the blood sugar might be on a kind of a ongoing basis. So they only last a very short period of time. So our human GLP-1 just lasts 1 to 2 minutes.
Well, it's too bad. It would help a lot of folks if it would last a lot longer. So tell us about the key impact of this drug. Like, how does it all put it into place?
So here's what the pharmaceutical companies did.
Okay.
They say, this material, it's made in our body, a hormone, lasts only 1 to 2 minutes. What could we do to get the same benefits that this hormone in our body makes to last a longer period of time to help control blood sugar in diabetics? So actually, and I brought a little prop today.
No.
So if you look at these Legos, each one of these rectangular Legos represents one amino acid.
Oh,
so there's actually 30 amino acids in human GLP-1.
Okay. Okay.
So if you count them, I made sure there's 30.
Did you? I was going to ask you that. That's funny.
And I had a lot of fun playing with the Legos.
Good. I'm glad. I used to play with Legos for hours. Anyways.
So here's what the scientists did at Novo Nordisk.
Okay.
They said, okay, this is what the human body makes, but it only lasts 1 to 2 minutes. What can we do to make it last longer? So they experimented and found that if they made certain substitutions in some of these 30 amino acids, that it would last a longer period of time, and yet they would get the same benefits that the human GLP provided to the body. So by making a few modifications, this is Ozempic. So,
the famous drug Ozempic, Mounjaro.
With those minor modifications, Ozempic was basically a carbon copy of human GLP-1 with these modifications, so it would last a whole week after one injection. So you went from 1 to 2 minutes to an entire week. So kind of remarkable that they could do that and provide the same benefits that we get from the human GLP-1.
And it's fascinating to see also all the other kind of benefits that we're hearing, because right now we've been to many conferences, and as you know, you've given several talks, even webinars on GLP-1 drugs. So you're not new to this topic. And as a full disclosure, as you know, I don't talk about stuff that I don't use. So I have used GLP-1 drugs, and we will talk about the symptoms, but I want to really take a moment to talk to us about the secondary benefit, like the domino effect of this drugs. Like, what are expected mortality improvement? Are there any expected mortality improvement with this drug?
Yeah, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay out the features that these drugs can provide. Okay. And so obviously it was originally designed to help control diabetes and help control with blood sugar. And also what's been found is it can help prevent pre-diabetes going to diabetes, which is a major windfall for people that are headed in that direction. Think of all the improvement people could gain from not getting into diabetes, and also the costs, the health costs that would be related. So we can save so much. But anyway, so diabetes was the original premise for these drugs. But as we know, they were also found to be great weight loss drugs to help people cut the calorie intake. And a lot of people that are on these drugs reduce their calories by about 800 calories a day. The other thing,
I'm thinking of all the cases I've approved on a substandard basis with, folks that have a BMI greater than 35 plus.
Absolutely.
So if those folks essentially get, like, either you're actively underwriting them now, but it's difficult because I'll ask you a two-pronged question on that. We've heard from questions from distribution, or not us directly from a reinsurer standpoint, but from our clients, like, are we thinking eventually in the future to give credits to these folks that are on GLP-1 drugs? Like, if they demonstrate that they have lost like a certain amount of weight, like 40 plus pounds, how would we target those folks? How would we see them in the future? Would we wait for them? Because really the big question mark here is, are they going to be compliant to this drug? Are they going to continue once they've reached their weight goal? What happens then? They maintain the drug, or what happens? What have you seen?
Well, here's the good news. So we talked about the diabetic control. We talked about the significant weight loss that you can generate, not only from the semaglutide, but the drug that is produced by Eli Lilly, which is kind of like a juiced semaglutide. But here's where the real story lies. It's the anti-inflammatory effects that these drugs provide. So this is something that a lot of people that talk about GLP-1 drugs don't talk about. But I think that's one of the things that we should hit today. The fact that it can help prevent or help treat cardiovascular disease, which is basically inflammation of the cardiovascular system. It can also affect and prevent neurologic inflammation. So there's a neuro anti-inflammatory effect. And what we're finding is the more that people look at these drugs, the more areas where they might offer an advantage that we weren't aware of. Interestingly, people with sleep apnea, obviously if they lose weight, they're much less likely to require a CPAP machine. So it's being found that it really improves the outcome for people that have sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea. It's also being found that it may even have benefits that we haven't been able to quantify yet in terms of preventing neurologic diseases. It could have an effect on people headed for Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's or things like that. So it's a wide range of anti-inflammatory effects. And you say, well, how do you quantify that? They've actually run studies that shows that one of the inflammatory markers that we use in medicine, CRP, it actually in a study was demonstrated it reduces CRP by 40%.
That's significant.
So we have diabetic control, weight loss. We have the anti-inflammatory effect, and there's probably some other goodies in there that we haven't yet tallied.
I have a few goodies. I have a few goodies that I'm going to top into the mix. Is I've read recently on Medscape or on the articles that we get that it might actually influence our habits, our alcohol intake, and also the latest one I've seen is that it might also be helpful with opiate use disorder. So that was the last one I read, and I'm like, oh my God, this is starting to sound a bit like snake oil. But I'll go along with Ozempic and
it's good that you bring that up, because here's how we want to add that in is another layer after all the ones that I've already enumerated there, is that it has an effect not only on the main part of our body, but it has an effect on the receptors in the brain too. And I think that's what you're talking about. I think when it will come to the final definition of this, that it actually resets your brain.
It creates neuroplasticity.
But I think what we're doing is we're resetting the way we may think about food, and it helps us kind of cut off those addictive behaviors we have in terms of food. You know, some people, like I have a bad habit or two, maybe.
You do? I am shocked. Please do share at least one. Share one, please.
Well, don't offer me any potato chips. Let's just say that.
Okay, potato chips it is. I will remember.
But, you know, a lot of us we develop a routine where we, you know, either smoke, drink, have a certain kind of food because we're rewarding ourselves, right? Yes. I mean, we feel like we deserve it. We worked a hard day. We did a lot of hard things. We had a lot of things to deal with our families. So people reward themselves with food. Like if there's an emergency, the ordering of takeout pizza goes up dramatically because people reward themselves with a pizza. Because, you know, what in the world is going to happen? I'll order a pizza. I'll feel better about life.
Yes.
Right? So the drug somehow, and we're not sure how this actually works yet, but somehow it works on the brain to do a reset. Not like a psychedelic kind of a reset. Not quite there. Okay. But I mean, I'm talking about you think about food differently. And one of the things I talk about is a bliss point, is people have a bliss point where there's certain foods that they have to have on a regular basis. Soft drinks, chocolate, you know, candy, things like that.
Yes.
This kind of changes that bliss point. And so, you know, a lot of people talk about farm to table, you know, the good qualities of farm to table. Yes. Unfortunately, most of us, our bodies are addicted to certain things. So we're actually factory to brain. Okay. And our brains require certain things, or they want certain things.
It's the dopamine.
Yeah, I know my wife, and I don't want to say anything negative about her. No. Wonderful person. She loves Diet Sprite.
Okay.
So if you look at the can of Diet Sprite, it says, "Obey your thirst" on the can. So the soda companies are not bashful about this. They know you're addicted. They want to provide what you require for your daily ongoing pleasure. So I think, as you mentioned, the thing is it resets our brain. So what's the outcome of all this is when we look at what are going to be the positive effects on mortality. And so companies like a direct life insurance company that has a big block of business, think of all the people that they've probably either rated or accepted standard for build.
For a series of impairment like obstructive sleep apnea, the
exactly.
top 5 that we just mentioned, build, diabetes, any cardiovascular, obstructive sleep apnea, and any form of inflammation in the body. So all those folks that you really approve on a substandard basis that are part of your block of business that perhaps are getting on a GLP-1 drug, what will be the positive impact?
Right.
If only we could track those folks.
Right. And right now we know from Milliman that at least 6.7% of their hits for people that apply for life insurance are for GLP-1 drugs, and it's going up dramatically. So we know that there's already a base, and it's going to be increasing significantly. So the insurance population, the book of business that's already out there, and for people that are applying in the future, if they're able to, as you said, effectively use these drugs, they haven't experienced any problems with them, they're not at risk for anything using the drugs, the benefits that should accrue from using this should be amazing. And it should probably get into the realm of all the benefits we got from the statin wave.
That's what we were talking about earlier on, and it's a good point. Now, how long do you think this will take? We'll finish up with the mortality and improvement, and we'll close it there because we have so much more to talk about. We can create so many more podcasts on GLP-1 drugs, but I wanted to talk about like the effect, like you said, on statin. How long that took? That took several years, like 10 plus years to demonstrate an effect. How long do you think, is that going to take that long for us to discover? You think, I mean, GLP drugs have been on the market now for what, approximately 2 to 3 years?
Well, actually, they started using semaglutide, I think, in 2017.
Okay.
So we've had some experience. So far, so good. Years, yeah. Anything can happen. Yeah. But I think going forward, right now about 35% of the American population uses a statin drug. Okay. And think of all the benefits like life insurance companies have accrued from people taking statins, right, all these years. Right. I think this, if nothing goes wrong and we stay on track, I think, we could approach something in that realm. In other words, so many people will be able to change their life when they start these drugs. They get the benefits if they can take them. Not everybody can. Yes. That they will finally achieve the weight loss they were looking for many years, because it's so hard to lose weight. I know I have trouble losing weight myself. So if they can achieve somewhere near their ideal body weight, improve their outcome, and by reducing their calories, find healthier calories to consume, I think we're on the start of a real wave here. And I think not only will these drugs help with mortality improvements, but I think slowly but surely people are going to start looking at their diet, even though they have certain things that they want to reward themselves with. I think eventually we're going to get to a point where we start taking a more close look at the food that we eat, and we're going to start trying to pick better foods. We talked about at the meeting, again, that you and I were at, the gut biome and how certain foods are much more helpful in helping us root out disease that we might come in contact with. And inflammation. Yes. So I think the combination of the GLP-1s are going to offer a tremendous advantage to us. And I think we're going to have a new way of looking at food and the calories we consume to put ourselves on a better track, better lifestyle.
Thank you so much, Dr. J. I think this was awesome discussion on GLP-1 drugs, and I'm hoping for the best. I continue on my quest to lose my weight loss, and more to come, and ask the doc. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.